Hello and welcome back to the Infinite Edge podcast, sponsored by InfiniteEdgeHealthWellness.com. My name is Todd, and with me today I have Nate and Jeremy, and we're on to episode 10. Today's episode 10, we'll be talking about building yourself up or building self, and it's going to be nature, nurture, or choice. It's kind of like a subheading. If you remember, we'll go back to episode 6, which was coping mechanism. This episode kind of stems off that as we go into really building ourselves up and just getting ourselves to the next level.
Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. It's a quote by Viktor Frankl, who, if you're not aware of who he was a neurologist, he was a psychologist, and he was also a prisoner in Nazi Germany back in World War II at 4 separate concentration camps. But he highlights something that I think is kind of overlooked a lot when it comes down to us actually building ourselves or recognizing ourselves and being aware, and that's choice. So I'm going to pivot from that and go into what I think are the three pillars of oneself, which is nature, nurture, and choice. And self-understanding is really, it's the foundational platform that we build our health on. Nature essentially equates to our genetics, our environmental factors, like the house we grew up in. Maybe we're in a middle of a city or out in the woods or rural or a bit that kind of thing. So those are all things that are nature, from the sense of it's stuff that's not something we are having control. It's just in our environment. And that can be seen in stuff like predispositions to illness from genetic stuff, or wherever you're stuck at home environment wise until adulthood. Then nurture is really the way that we grow from those around us. So that's going to be our family. Parents specifically are usually the big ones that get thought of with the nurture thing. So it's our familial tribe, our friends in school and stuff growing up, and even into adulthood, maybe the people we work with. That's going to be the nurture. It's what's around us and the other ones in our society that are helping us grow into whoever we are. And then the very last one is the choice, which kind of like I said is very frequently overlooked. And this is where we have the option to consciously defy nature and nurture. We can go and we can make a choice and say, look, even though I was raised in this environment, even though I am, you know, genetically disposed to having this kind of a mental illness, a physical illness, or whatever, I'm going to choose to do everything I can to go a different direction. And so that's our way of consciously beating the odds and really forging ourselves into what we're truly called to be.
Well, see, and for me, the choice aspect of it speaks a lot to someone like myself. So people very much overlook the choice aspect of who it is. And it's like, oh, but you're nothing like your family. You're nothing like where you grew up, or, how'd you end up the way that you are? Well, I made the choice to. If you would have looked at my life growing up and my life up to adulthood, I have almost zero mirror to it at this point.
Sure.
Now, a lot of that was the choice of I walked away from a lot of the unhealthy um, ways of upbringing and exposure that I had over those years. So I can look at it and people are like, well, yeah, but what about, well, yeah, nature, nurture. They forget that you can make a choice to be what you are. But then there's a lot of people that'll blame both sides of it. Oh, that's the way I was raised. Well, it doesn't excuse you to be a terrible person, right? Or oh, I was born into it, so I can't do anything else. Nah, that's not how that works. If you make the choice to make an adequate change, you can do it. So I like the choice side of it because it's been one of those. That one speaks a lot to me, um, being where I came from and where I am.
Kind
Yeah,
of like,
absolutely. I feel that.
I think a lot of what Jeremy said too is the nature on the environmental factors. Um, for me, it's mine was more of a nature by genetics factor, and the fact that my father and my grandfather both were diabetics, so that makes me predisposed to it. So knowing that my whole life, I've done as much as I can, without obviously I still enjoy a sweet snack every once in a while. I just don't go crazy on the stuff because I know I have a good chance of getting that if I'm not careful.
Well, and that's where the choice comes in is, yeah, your nature and your nurture have impacts to your life, just like what you just said. But if you make better choices to say, hey, maybe let's take an initiative to not let this affect me in the same way, or a try for it to not, then it makes a difference for the rest of your life.
Next, I would say I have 10 reasons or 10 ways to make a choice or to self-improve, right? So we'll go through those. And what I mean is like, so we're talking about, I have a predisposition to diabetes or I grew up a rough way and I've made the choice to overcome that. So here's some of the things you can do to help you overcome those such things. Knowledge, right? So even when it came to the diabetes, I knew no sugar. You can get that through whatever it's reading or what I like to call going down the rabbit hole, right? I know Nate likes going down the rabbit hole. Something piques your interest, you find that information that links you to something else, and you just keep going until you find the root of what you're looking for.
Yep. I might as well be in Alice in Wonderland, jumping down some rabbit hole and tumbling into Lord only knows what. Because I think it's so important.
This is also one of the reasons that when Nate and me get together to try to accomplish something, it takes us 4 hours longer than it should, because we end up down 8 rabbit holes in the process of going to this one.
Next would be just find things that inspire you. Find things that make you happy. That can help you self-improve too. Whether it be, you guys like going to South Dakota, riding your bikes up there, and enjoying nature, or whether it's like that, or if it's hiking, or camping. The whole man cave thing. Let's be honest, guys make that to inspire themselves. It gives them a place of solitude almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing, music. I mean, music's a really good way to leverage that for inspiration too. If it's just being able to, maybe you're putting in some happy music on so you can be in a little better mood, or maybe you're just trying to feel whatever emotions you got and you're listening to something else, something sad, something angry, whatever. You can kind of vent your own emotion through that too, and uh, you can use those things to move forward and grow from it.
Definitely agree with that. Then I got overcome fears. And the main thing for overcoming fears is just anytime you have a fear, that's an area you can grow in, so it can get you out of your comfort zone. So any way to get out of your comfort zone is a good way to grow and improve yourself as well. Number four, have level up your skills. So a lot of us have different skills, whether like Nate and Jeremy, they're both good with mechanics. They can always level those skills up. I know Nate has gotten better at guitar ever since I met him. He likes to level that skill up. So that's another thing, and it gives you a positive habit, gives you a positive thing to go into. So lose yourself in a little bit maybe and level up your skills on whatever it is you're good at or you enjoy. Number five is a big one, and I know right once we get done here, Nate will be on the way to do that, and that's your weekly exercise routine. You level up your fitness, right? Level
Yeah,
up.
that's a great one because it helps in so many ways to improve self. Like it'll help you build strength, it'll help you build endurance, mental resilience. It's great for so many things. So it's definitely a habit to get into for improvement for sure.
Right, even health, sleep, all the stuff. It helps with everything. Identify your blind spots at number six. Now, to me, that meant, know your shortcomings to a point. I have to be able to know, well, not even necessarily shortcomings, but know what I don't notice as well. Like if it's Nate, we've talked about this before. I don't know if it was on the cast or not. Sometimes he has a tendency to let people walk on him. So he knows that's his blind spot. Sometimes it's with family, a lot of times probably with friends or just work related.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've gotten to a point where I start looking at it this way. A lot of people recognize me for my ability to take on tasking. And it's come to a point where, while it's looked at as a strength from everybody else, I'm starting to look at it as a weakness. because it's actually making it so that I can't do anything as well as I really should because I'm not able to dedicate the focus and attention to it. So that to me is a blind spot because it's like, oh, I'm doing something good. I need to help people. I need to go and put in this work. But in reality, it's actually taking away from what I'm doing. So that's definitely a blind spot where it's something that seems good, but it really can be a problem.
Yeah, I had that place at my the last place I worked, and I realized I had to kind of set more boundaries, or stipulations here. Um, that takes us to number 7, and it's to ask for constructive feedback. When people criticize you, sometimes they do it just to tear you down, but a lot of times, especially with friends, we want to constructively criticize each other. And even when they do say something to you to tear it down, if it's true, you have to stay positive. It's best to stay positive and take that and make it constructive.
Oh yeah,
See,
and
and
I was about to say a real good point for that, not to cut you off, is if anyone watching the cast sees something, post some comments. We're good to take positive and negative feedback, and we'll roll with it. We'll try to make this all the better.
Oh yeah, just don't comment on my monotonous. I can't fix it. I'm sorry.
well, the constructive criticism and feedback from your friends, it actually ties in really well because when we're getting ready to start our cast, I made a comment, and Nate was like, "Hey, maybe you should process that one just a little bit different." And so then we were able to have a direct discussion, and I didn't take it as I'm offended because you called me out on my perspective, right? It was a matter of, hey, we here's where I see it's flawed, and when he made his point and proved it, it was like, yeah, I guess you're right. My perspective's definitely a little bit flawed. I could have taken that and been, well, he's just being a jerk, and you know, and trying to make me feel stupid. Well, that's not the case. So you have to realize that, because it would be really easy to be like, no, that's my perspective and I'm right. No, if you got to sometimes listen to what they have to say and not block it out. Helps me improve. Nate does that to me a lot.
Well, and honestly, that helps with conversation. I feel like a lot of problems
It
with the
does.
world in general is when they make an opinion, they don't want to hear yours. Yours doesn't count, right? Number 8 is going on to acknowledge your flaws. Now, I think all three of us are pretty good at doing that. The only thing I would say, at least I know me and I've seen you guys both do it, is we overanalyze it too much or call ourselves on stuff maybe that's not as big of a deal and over make it worse. So I would say, yes, you need to acknowledge your flaws, but you also need to understand that you don't need to put so much pressure onto yourself to where if it's a minor thing that's easily fixable and to downgrade yourself about it.
See, and that can kind of tie into number 9, which we haven't got to yet. But I'll say it. Number 9 is avoid negativity, and that can be both external and internal. And if you're acknowledging your flaws and you're focusing on the negativity of it instead of going, okay, well, let's improve it, or letting it get you down in the dumps, you're letting that negativity affect you. You know, so
And my
they
middle
can
name
go.
is
They
Nancy.
Nancy,
Yeah, I'm pretty bad about being negative, especially internally, and I do let
right,
out the outbounds.
right.
Um,
I think
So
ideally, I think that we need to acknowledge our flaws, but not overly fixate on them. And instead, and this is something that isn't necessarily in the list of different ways to improve, but I think the opposite of this is actually really important, and that's acknowledging the strengths and doubling down on the strengths and trying to build up what really makes us unique and things that we're strong at and focus on that. And we can still work on the flaws and acknowledge the flaws, make sure we know they're there, but not get fixated on them.
right. And
absolutely.
what's the whole podcast about? That's number 10. We're gonna learn from others, right?
Yep.
Whether it be a science, doctor, or whether it be off the interweb, some quote that an old, Jewish guy said back in the day. We're gonna learn from everything, whether it be each other or outside sources. So
Yep. Absolutely.
And with all this, as we always go through the things to work to improve yourself, right? They can improve things like your mental health and your day-to-day activities. So, part of that is learn from others and acknowledge what's going on, take criticism. That can all go into reaching out to your people, because they can sometimes help you if you're in a, detrimental state to yourself, right? So, but always talk to people, they'll help you, you know, and keep things moving.
With all that being said, us as small business owners, we have to give a shout out to all the other small business that we know. And that's, let's start with the Subtle Flex podcast, ran by Fred LaFeo. That's a sports podcast on YouTube. We got Laser Bakes and their handcrafted wood decorations and other cool items, coasters, stuff like that. That's done on Facebook by Blakely Hollinger. And then we have the Bee's Knees Handmade. They also specialize in custom shirts. I've seen some pretty funny ones on there. There was a Green Bay Packers one I saw on there the other day. It was pretty funny. They also do a lot of little decorative things for cups, and that's Sierra Rodriguez that makes that. And then, if you're ever in the Fort Wayne area, more specific, Columbia, right, Jeremy? Columbia.
Columbia City.
And you're into the more homemade like remedies and stuff. There's a place up there called Sage and Stone. They do a lot of. Go ahead and explain a little bit, Jeremy.
So they do a lot more the holistic, the essential oils and crystals and stuff like that. And if it's something that works for you, definitely check them out. Like I said, she's got some cool knickknacks and trinkets and stuff that are there too. So definitely worth a stop in if you're local.
Appreciate that. I was fumbling through the words on that one. I don't know why.
You're good. You're good.
Well, like we say every week, this is episode 10. We're going to tell you to push your limits. We want you to build yourself up. That's what we talked about in this one, and give yourself a positive edge. Also, please come back next week on the Infinite Edge podcast, sponsored by Infinite Edge Health Wellness. We'll be on to episode 11. Feel free to comment on YouTube. Also, our Facebook page. We will also be on X, which I need to get more on X. I haven't been on X much lately. I'll start pushing some more stuff on there. Nate is in between whether he's banned or not from TikTok. We'll figure that out. But yeah, so subscribe to us on YouTube, like I said. Comment on YouTube, Facebook, any of those. Just comment right to us, and we can have a discussion on the comments. We can have a discussion on the cast. Pretty soon we hope to have eventually, have people on here with us to kind of help us go through everything. So again, we'll see you next time. Todd, Nate, and Jeremy. We'll see you next week. Bye.